Coming up on today's show, we are talking about Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. Hello, darlings, and welcome to Wake Up Well. I am your host, Portia Scott. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you are a regular watcher, you know I love you. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us every single Sunday as we discuss waking up well for our minds, bodies, and souls. And if you are watching the replay, do me a favor and in the comment, put hashtag replay so I know that you were watching and we will send you a shout out. I'm super excited about today's show. You guys know I have been gone for 2 weeks. One, because we were gone for Labor Day, and then my birthday. Your girl is turning another year older, one more year around the sun, and I am so very grateful for that. And I had an incredible week, really, into the weekend, but we are back. And listen, if you are a regular watcher, I know you realize there's something a little bit different about the show. And yes, it is. So we are so excited just about the things that we are able to do in this show. And so thank you all so much for showing up. You guys know I never do this show alone. I am always with my co-host and our mental health hygienist, Martinez Sellers. Before I bring him in though, I want to know in the comments, what are you grateful for? We always talk about gratitude. Gratitude really is the lens in which we see we change our perspective. And so let us know, what are you grateful for? And so now I want to welcome my co-host and our mental health hygienist, Martinez Sellers. Hey,
hello, darling. Wait a minute.
Hello, darling.
I love the new set. Oh my, okay, it's fabulous. Come on, talk to us. Was this part of the birthday celebration?
This was absolutely part of the birthday celebration. Hey, Val. Hello, darling.
Hey, Val.
Was Marty. You know what? John did a great job. He surprised me. He got my office painted completely different, so it's black and white. He's
Love
not
it.
finished. He's gonna do a gallery wall in the back and all of these things. So, I just had an incredible birthday. I got my last birthday gift came in. When did John get back? Last week. And so I'm headed to Bath and Body Works because, I got to get my candles and my aromatherapy on. But yes, this is definitely part of the birthday. And guess what, Marty? I didn't even realize until last week. I think we were watching your show last week and I was like, what is that in the background? Look at you, Marty. We are getting ready for the big time. You hear me?
Listen, we are a more professional show, and we do everything the right way. Professional. But listen, happy birthday to you. You deserve it. Many more. And so excited. If I can start off, I'm just grateful for you and to you because you really helped open the door for what I was doing and you helped take it to the next level for me. And I am so grateful for you. I'm grateful for the whole Scott family. Grateful that, just an opportunity to share with you and that how you do it in such a way that is so opening and welcoming and that you don't do it begrudgingly, but that you do it with such the heart, love, and care of Christ himself. So I am grateful for you and what you bring to not just my life, but everyone who watches this show as well, because you've poured so deeply into us. So again, we want to pour into you.
Oh, Marty, thank you so much. Let me tell you, that just warms my heart. I'm glad I get to do that. I think about this and I think I'm just so grateful. I say this all the time, but I think for community, when I started to do this, when I started out doing the podcast, it was Daryl that jumped on and said, I would produce your podcast. When I had this crazy idea for a show, I didn't know how it would go, what platforms we would go on. Daryl was the one that was like, I'm behind you, and then I had my husband pushing me and being my number one fan, which if you can see, honey, darling, that the what you're seeing now, you don't see it, but we got us a new camera. We got us new
All
lights.
right.
And so
Yes.
he's been my biggest fan. I'm so grateful. Godfrey says, hello, family. Show
Godfrey,
looks
hello.
amazing. Thank you so much. I do want to let you guys know because since the platform has changed, we're only allowed to pull comments from YouTube and my business page, which is Portia Scott. I am Portia Scott. And so you guys who are on the personal page, it is not that I'm ignoring your comments. It's that we're not able to pull them in the same way. So what I would challenge you and recommend if you want to comment and be a part of this conversation is that you head over to our business page, but probably more importantly, you head over to YouTube at Portia Scott Media. Jump on there. We're pulling all the comments in. So just to let you know, y'all know your girl is not ignoring you. I'm not going to get all big time in my fancy schmancy office and ignore you guys. It is just that the platform doesn't allow us to pull comments from my personal page. Marty, you know what? I am so excited. It's just crazy. I'm really just sitting in this moment, and it may not be a lot for anyone else, but I think that just like you said, I remember in 2019 in June before we went live with the podcast, I didn't see this. You know, I didn't see a show. I didn't see these things. I always saw myself at Essence. So I'll be there soon. But I didn't see this. And I hope that as people follow our journey, you know, our audience, I like to say they cross-pollinate, right? And so I hope as they see our journey and they can see us from when we were just doing the podcast to when we were doing the live shows to just the growth. I hope that they know that, guess what? It is possible for you. It is possible. If you can see it, I'm telling you. So I am super excited just about that. And it's just been so good. But yes, Marty, it looks like you have something to say. What you about to say?
Saying, but you have shared and told us to follow our dreams. And not only did you tell us that, you have been an example and a model of that as well. As you grow, we have been growing as well. And then you've even, you know, how you critique us and just encourage us. That's what it's all about, especially during this time as we are living in this extended pandemic that we're still in the midst of all of that. We need some place and someone that we can glean some hope from. And you've always been that. You've always allowed us to glean hope from you. And I'm so appreciative of it as you continue to expand what you're doing. It encourages us to expand what we are doing as well. And I dare to say this too, it allows us to do it without fear. It allows us to do it without shame. It allows us to do it without even compromising on our values and vision. So again, Portia, I salute you and I appreciate you for always being the one to lead the way into greatness as you continue. And when you make it to the Essence Festival, I'm going to be on there next to John Henry Scott III on the front row with Maddox and Miracle and John Teese as we are just all John Tell, yes, as we are screaming like crazy saying, that is Portia Scott. Yes.
Yes, I am so excited. I'm not telling you, I'm not crying. My eyes are just sweating right now. Marty, that was really beautiful. I don't even know how to come back from that. Thank you so much. I think that, you know, you put so much into the show and into things that you want to do.
Yes.
And so oftentimes you feel like you are doing it for naught sometime.
Yes.
Or you're speaking into a camera and nobody's showing up. And so all the days when, you know, you didn't have people coming on and you didn't have people showing up, that I think what I've learned over the years is that no matter who shows up, you still show up.
Right.
And you've definitely helped me with that because I've seen you show up when it's been hard. Raymond said, hi, First Lady and Marty. Hey, Raymond.
Hello, Raymond.
I love Raymond so much. So this has been a lot. And I hope that all of our watchers, I hope that you have community, or even if you don't have community, one person. And if you don't have one person, let us be that person for you that'll say, what is your dream? Oh, we believe that. And so we want you to be part of our community. We want you to text the word impact to 404-737-0867 and be a part of our community. You saying, I don't have anybody? Let me tell you, text the word impact to 404-737-0867 and you will have have that community that will give you a little kick in the butt, a little inspiration, and empowerment, because I believe in you. I believe in you.
Yes.
So, Marty, I want to get into this week's episode. Nicole said, "Ooh, child, am I on the right page now?" Yes,
Yes,
girl.
Nicole.
Yes. And listen, Nicole had her Black Mental Health Matters shirt
Didn't
on
she?
today. I loved it. You looked amazing, Nicole. I'm telling
Thank you,
if
darling, for your
if
support.
right, Nicole looked like the epitome of freedom.
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes.
She like mental freedom today. I loved it,
Yes.
Nicole. You looked absolutely amazing. And Marty, while we're talking about mental health, September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
Yes.
And so I do want to put this in, that this is essentially the trigger warning, is that we will be talking about suicide prevention and awareness. And so if it has affected you or someone in your family, if this is a trigger for you, I would like you to turn off the show now, and you can watch another show that we have. But I want to put that out there because I know this is such a sensitive topic, but I think it's important that we talk about it. And I want to say this is that according to the National Alliance of Mental Health, NAMI, they really have said that September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And it is a time to raise awareness on the stigmatized and often taboo topic. In addition to shifting public perception, we use this month to spread hope and vital information to people affected by suicide. Our goal is ensuring that individuals, friends, and families have access to the resources they need to discuss suicide prevention and to seek help. Also, someone that is contemplating suicide, you can always call 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-TALK, and TALK is 8255. I'll make sure that during the show we continue to have that number out for you, that you can call and talk to somebody. So we are going to jump into this show, Marty. I know that when September comes around, this is something that you are so serious about. So serious that you have essentially started this 30-day challenge. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to do that.
The 30-day challenge that I'm doing on my Instagram page is all about changing, y'all hear me say it all the time, how to stop the stinking thinking, because that's what it's all about. How do we change the narrative of our own mindset? And I'm so passionate about this. I lost a patient of mine. He was no longer a patient when I discovered he had committed suicide about 5 years ago. And I don't ever forget Richard Love. And I do have permission to share his name from the permission of his family, because it was such a tragic thing that a beautiful young Black man who felt there was no hope and the only way to end his pain was to take his life. And he took a bus all the way from Southern California down here in the IE, in the Ontario area, up to San Francisco on a bus ride that is about 10 to 12 hours to jump off of the Golden Gate Bridge, because he felt that was his only escape from all the pain. And too often, too many people are suffering in silence in the shadow of shame, because we don't know how to create safe environments to say, I'm not okay. And I had someone else just last week was contemplating that, and I'm like, listen, you are not. This is the only time I will borrow Ayanla's phrase. I said, you are not going to do this on my watch. I will be right out there. So it's a serious situation, and we have to normalize the conversations about it.
Yes.
It is, whether we want to talk about it or not, it is a public health crisis in America, because suicide is still the number 2 cause of death between the ages of 10. Yes, you heard me right. The ages of 10 and 34, and it's the 10th leading cause of death for just in general in the United States. Number 2, the second leading cause of death. So if you have anyone between the ages of 10 and 34, we need to be talking about this.
Absolutely. And I think too, Marty, it's that yes, there's a stigma around mental health, and then there's a
Hmm.
second layer of suicide or talking about suicide.
Yes.
And then we don't also know how to talk about it, right? Just bringing the
Right.
topic up, because what do
Right.
you do, or how do you talk about it when someone has lost someone? But I think it's
Hmm.
so important. I was reading this article, Marty, and I want to read just a small snippet because I think
Please,
this
please.
is the part that really jolted me.
Hmm.
He wrote this article. He had come out to his brother about a molestation that happened when he was 5 years old. And he's talking through telling his brother going on to college and his attempt at suicide. And so in it, he says, these thoughts of ending my life followed me long after college ended. The summer that my daughter
Yes.
still sat in the womb, I walked through St. Mary's Park during the work week, contemplating how to leave. Should I jump in front of a car or a train?
Yep.
Should I take pills or a bullet? Start a fight? Would plan to lose? How would I create enough pain? How would I create enough pain so that the
Mm.
pain would no longer be? Where do you go when the pain of staying is stronger than that of leaving?
Yes.
That's powerful. When he said, where do you go when the pain of staying is
Is.
so strong than the pain of leaving? And when I
Hmm.
think about suicide, and I don't know the psychological things that are going on, but there clearly is an amount of pain, an immense amount
Yes.
of pain that we cannot imagine,
Hmm.
or some of us have imagined, but it really
Hmm.
is that low where it's the pain of staying is so bad. It's more than just the
Yes.
pain of leaving. And so
Yes.
oftentimes we say, oh, why would, we say things like suicide is selfish, or why would they do
Right.
this? And I just have to believe that the amount of pain that they are in, that honestly in their mind, they cannot escape it. It sounds
There
like
we
it's
go.
almost like being in a prison in your own mind,
Yes. That's
under your
exactly
pain.
it. Yes. And what happens is the isolation is so great. Till he said it perfectly in that the amount of staying appears to be at that moment in time, it is greater than they could ever think about. And at that moment, we think that for this it's a temporary problem. We think that it's a but we act out and make a permanent decision for a temporary problem, because a lot of times we don't know how to say I need help or I'm in
Mm-hmm.
pain. He was very descriptive in saying, what can I do to make this pain that I cause the pain to be greater than the pain I'm already feeling? And when
Mm-hmm.
Portia, when you are in pain, I
Yeah.
liken it like this a lot of times. Listen, I've had some root canals in my life, Lord Jesus, and I was just like, listen, just somebody shoot me in the head. Now, I didn't mean that, but that's how the pain was. I
Right,
remember
right,
when
right.
I ruptured my Achilles playing
Mm-hmm.
basketball, and I can't even play. So don't. That's a whole nother
Uh,
topic. Um, and the pain was so great. By the time I got to the doctors, he said, "What did you take?" I said, "About 8 Tylenol." They said, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" I said, "No, I just need this pain
the
to
pain.
end." The pain, because I
Mm-hmm.
can't. When you're in emotional pain, just like physical pain, you're not
Yes.
rational. Your mind goes
That's right.
everywhere. Yeah. And you're just trying to alleviate
Mm-hmm.
the pain. I need this pain to stop. I don't care what it takes. I need it to stop. And that's when we especially in our communities, and we have this
Mm-hmm.
misconception, and I'm going to just touch real lightly and pull my toe back out the water. We also have to quit saying in our churches that you are going to hell, and scaring people in that. We have a misnomer, and because we don't understand it, we then put all
Come on.
these additional fallacies out there to make people even
Mm-hmm.
more confused when they're in that state of mind.
Absolutely. You bring up the root canal, and I had hurt my knee.
Yes.
I was putting groceries in the truck, and my whole kneecap just came out of
Right.
socket. And I always
Woo.
had it where it was like more loose anyway. and it came out of socket. And I'm like, they called the ambulance. I'm in the ambulance. And literally, I'm telling the guy in the ambulance, I'm like, this pain is worse than childbirth. I will give birth again with no epidural. And then I was telling him that I felt like, I was like, at this moment, I feel like I'm getting ready to faint. And so he was like, no, don't go out, don't go out. And so what he was saying was, when you're in so much pain, the body essentially wants to put you to sleep because it wants to shut down so that you don't feel that pain. And so if the body is made to do that, that's shock, right? That's really what shock is. Shock is that there's so much pain in your body that your body reacts and it shuts you down because you really can't feel that amount of pain. So thinking about mentally, and people getting to suicide ideation and wanting to commit suicide and battling those thoughts. It's almost like that pain and it just wants to shut it off. So I wonder just, in these thought processes is that it is really just trying to shut off, the pain and figuring out what to do. And I mean, people feel so hopeless and helpless, and Marty, you can kind of speak to even now I want to say post COVID, but it's not, but really post quarantine, right? Because we're still in the middle of a pandemic and the percentage of depression and feeling out of control. We talked about control, and sometimes you feel so out of control that adds a level of pain to it, right? I'll never have my life back. So why live here? I don't have anything to live for. I can't do this. And while we may think because we're not in that amount of pain, it's easy for us to judge. But talk a little bit, Marty, about just the increase that you're seeing, if you are seeing, in depression and, maybe having to refer patients out to psychiatrists for medication and things like that.
Yes. And there's such a direct correlation. First, let me hit some of the emotional markers, if you will, of suicide and suicide awareness. Feeling depressed. We have that. We have lack of interest in doing things that you would normally do throughout your life. We have irritability. We have anger. We have anxiety. We have extreme anxiety. We have shame and humiliation. That's what that letter was talking about, the shame and humiliation of all. We have mood swings. We have the lack of hope. Now, since the pandemic, we have definitely seen tremendous increase in depression. We've seen tremendous increase in anxiety. We've seen tremendous increase in PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder, as a result of watching George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all these things, because we've had although we may have been direct impacted by it, we've definitely had the emotional feelings because of the constant seeing it over and over on social media. So the statistics on suicide have been all over the place because of the pandemic. Actually, we've seen a 4% decrease in suicide because of the pandemic, which is quite wonderful. However, we've seen a drastic increase in the double digits when it comes to depression, when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to PTSD and some of these other traumatic events that have happened. I've referred more patients to see now you can go to your primary care doctor if you're having some depression and some anxiety. You can go to your primary care. You don't have to go necessarily to your psychiatrist, but you can go to your primary care and talk to them about some medication for depression and anxiety, because your general practitioner can do those things. And they are going to give you usually a little lesser dosage. Now, I always say do that with coupling with a therapist as well, because your therapist can give your primary care some insight that they don't have, and get that informed consent form so that you guys can do an integrative approach, so that you can talk to the primary care and your therapist can as well. And the results have decreased by 50% by simply doing that. So we definitely can talk about that.
Marty, that is incredible. One, the decrease, we are so
It
grateful for
is.
that. But as you said, the increase of depression and anxiety. Before I get into more of that, I do want to tell everyone that's over on our personal page that if you're commenting on our personal page, we can't pull
Hmm.
those comments. So that's why you're not seeing your comments on the screen. But if you
Hmm.
want to engage, if you'll go over to Portia Scott Media on YouTube, or I am Portia Scott, the page on Facebook, will be able to pull those comments in. I know earlier Ayana said, hooray, I got in. She was able to go over on YouTube to Portia Scott Media and pull that up. Nicole also had a comment. Daryl, can you just pull that up really, really
Hmm.
quickly? She said, I'm so thankful for this very important conversation being discussed. Thank you, Marty, for being so bold and touching the topic of people deciding who is and who isn't going to hell. That alone has drove so many to early
Hmm.
death. You know, it is so, that one,
Hmm.
that is one that we have often said that
Hmm.
you're going to hell if you
Yes.
do that, or if this is the only sin that isn't forgiven, and all of that stuff. And so now people are so confused because
Yes.
a loving God should know how much pain I'm in. And we don't want people to commit suicide, but it
Right.
just adds to the confusion because now you
Yes.
don't have a reason to live. But if you're hurting so bad, you don't have anything to look forward to in eternity either,
Hmm.
especially as a believer, when that is the thing we hold
Yes.
on to, is that when this world is over, when things are so hard, I have eternity. But now you have turned me away from the very
Yes.
thing that I hold on to. So, Nicole, I definitely appreciate Marty for you bringing that up, and Nicole, you mentioning it as well.
And
Marty, go ahead. Yep.
no, I said the reason I said that I back in the early '90s, I had a friend of mine who was a young deacon who did, because he was in so much pain, did lay his life down on the railroad tracks, and a train ran over him. And there was this major battle back in the church. Why are we having his funeral in the church? He's gone to hell. He's gone to hell. It's like, no, we don't know the pain he was in, that he did not have, that we have created a environment in the church that when we if we're in leadership, we can't say I'm struggling, we can't say that I'm hurt. Now, I'm not trying to go down that lane, y'all, but that's why I'm so adamant about that, because
That's
we
right.
have to change the narrative on that, and get a better theological understanding about death, hell, and as that pertains to suicide and suicide
Mental health.
awareness with that. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
I think, Marty, we've seen it over the last couple of years. My
Hmm.
heart has broken the number of
Yes.
pastors who have sat in their driveway, who have
Right.
taken a gun, who have
Yes.
taken pills, who have ended their lives. Pastors,
Yes.
pastors,
Yes.
because they are so overwhelmed, they are so hurt, they are in pain. You know, many pastors talk about it, you know, over the
Hmm.
pulpit, about their mental health
Yes.
concerns. And guess what? Sometimes, and not just pastors, right? Let's take Robin Williams, let's take some people, I'm
Yes.
saying people in the public eye, and
Yes.
oftentimes we hear them openly say it, but we care so much about the gift and not the person, that
Yes.
no one's reaching out for help. And so they know that people only care about the gift, but they're not looking at me. And I think it's important that we start looking
Hmm.
at people and
That's
not the
right.
gift. That the gift can be amazing, but the man or woman can be hurting. And where is, you know, our responsibility in that? I think, Marty, sometimes we hear people say, listen, you're not alone, you know, let me know, call somebody, reach out for help. And I wonder, Marty, if in that mindset, if they can even do that. So if,
Well,
you know,
it's
it's one
difficult.
thing, right? Hmm.
And
So
if
I
I can say
wonder
that, not
if,
to cut
like,
you. Go
some,
ahead.
go ahead. I was going
We
to
get so
say,
excited.
you know, I know. I was going to say, with some people, like you said, you know, we're always saying, just reach out, call us, I'm here. And I think sometimes we have to take the responsibility to make the first step, to not
That's
ask them to
right.
call, but to call them when we
That's
know,
right.
when we are
That's
sure, when
right.
we know that they deal with mental health issues, when we know that they've had
Yes.
suicide ideation, when we see them declining, but we're not really sure, and this has never been a thing
Yes.
before. It's important if we care about
Very.
people, right? I mean, there's some people that
Yes.
they're smiling all the time and you never heard them say anything about suicide or mental health, and then it happens. Well, we just didn't know. But sometimes we have clues. And I think instead of just being
Hmm.
just the status quo of just like reach out, why don't we
Hmm.
reach out? And it is a responsibility that we have to reach out to them.
I totally agree. And we have to stop giving churchy cliches. God will never put
Right,
more
right,
on you
right.
than you can bear. Well, at this moment, I don't feel
I
that way.
feel
And
that way.
my
Hmm.
feelings are trumping my spirituality. My spirit, my feelings are trumping my rationality. My feelings are just
Yeah.
trumping my everything that I think. There are some behavioral things that we can look at as well. Because since you brought up some behavioral things, I'm
Yes,
checking my,
yes.
if we're doing a lot of isolation, there's a need to be concerned. If there's a lack of communication and they're not giving you, people are stop responding to text messages, not picking up the phone, there's a reason to be concerned. Can I say, if they're posting some really bizarre things on their social media, that's a reason to be concerned. Someone writing a will, you're like, wait a minute. Someone giving away all their possessions, especially those things that they hold near and dear to their hearts. That's a concern, especially for we as parents. I had a dear friend whose son says, "Hey, Dad, I just want you to let you know that I love you. You've been a nothing but a great father to me," and blah blah blah. And he hung up the phone, and as the father was calling the son's mother, he heard the gun go off. And he just screamed, and the mom, because that's a sign, some different things. And he just said, "No, son, it's okay." And so doing those things, this is real. And we can no longer say it does not happen in our community. And in both of those examples, Richard Love and my friend, these were African American men. And men are 78% of those who commit suicides.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that point. I mean, I remember growing up, it's our
Hmm.
community, so we grew up around people around us.
Right,
And
right.
when you would hear about a suicide, it would be
Hmm.
probably somebody Caucasian or another race,
Hmm.
right? Because we would
Hmm.
kind of say this thing like, we don't kill ourselves, we don't do this because we've handled so much. We've handled slavery, we've handled
Right,
all kind of crisis, so we don't kill ourselves. But that's not true. That's so
right.
not true, as you've said. And I think it's important that because when we say that, then
Hmm.
there's that stigma again. When that has always been
Yes.
around the community, oh, we don't go crazy. We don't have mental health issues. We don't take medicine.
Hmm.
That's for other people. That's a white
Right,
man's thing. That's a white woman's
right,
issue. We don't
right.
do all that stuff. And I think that has harmed us. And I understand why we have said that, but that's also a reason why suicide is absolutely something that our community thinks about because of the heaviness that we carry
Yes,
around all the time, the extra
yes,
weight that as
yes.
men and women of color, Black men and women, that we carry
Hmm.
around. That there's extra stuff going on, and not saying no other race does, but what I am saying is that it has been a stigma, something that we haven't talked about. We've always said like we don't,
Yes.
and that's so not true. I think I've talked about this before. Many, 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 many years ago, a guy that I dated.
Hmm.
When he went off to college, and when we were in high school, he had been, I don't think he had been diagnosed when we were in high school, but definitely in college, he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And
Yes.
it's crazy because I remember the day that kind of everything changed and it clicked.
Yes.
And I didn't know it was schizophrenia. I just thought, oh my God, he's a stalker.
Right.
And as time went on, you see those things. And he did eventually take his life, a Black man.
Yes.
And schizophrenia was something we don't get,
Yes.
right? We don't do bipolar. We're not bipolar. And so there's so many, John Henry, many, 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 many years ago. But I do want to say that because
Right.
I
Right.
did want to say that because, um, as a child, I didn't know what to look for, but
Right.
as an adult, understanding those ages, he was right at the age, Marty, because doesn't it start to
Hmm.
show up around 14, 15 years old, 15, 16 years old?
High
And
school and
so,
college, we need more therapists around because of that, especially for our young men. High school and
mhm,
college, watch those behaviors. Watch it because that's when a lot of them have the psychotic breaks in college. That first or second
mhm,
year in college, you're seeing a lot of that. Maybe that last year in high school. Yes,
yeah.
so you're right on point with that, Portia. Right on point.
Yeah, and the guy, the article that I read, he says after college, the attempt was in college, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so and then
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that, even after college, it kind of, went on. But I think it's so, it's so important, it's so heartbreaking,
Mm-hmm.
that we just don't know. And I think that while this is a very heavy subject, I think it's important things to look for, in our own children. It is hard to think
Yes.
about. It is hard to try to digest, but God, let me know. So at least if I can see these different things or see
Mm-hmm.
things headed in the wrong way, John and I were very, very
Yes.
open with the kids and trying to find out, like, how is the pandemic affecting you? What can we do
Yes.
to help? How can we be
Yes.
there? Being more open, especially with my daughter. And when I started seeing, like, oh, what's going on? Because she's not as social as she used to be, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was just her trying to figure it out. But it is so important that we are all up in our children's business,
Yes.
and
Most
sometimes
definitely.
even being all in there, we may not know. So looking at some of those signs, Marty, for me, you said that, suicide is between 10 and 34.
Yes.
What are we looking for in these younger ages? Because I think it's sometimes
Mm-hmm.
easier as they get older, but when they're younger, you don't think my 10-year old,
Yes.
you just think, oh, it's another phase he or she is going through. What are some of those things that we can look for in our younger children?
You said some great things earlier about the increase in drug use, the increase in alcohol. I would love us to do, and I'm hoping some research comes out in some of these specialized research projects where people have OD'd and other people have gotten in their cars after drinking. What percentage of those are really suicide attempts that have been mislabeled in other directions as well? We got to look at cyberbullying that goes on, all the cyberbullying. Pay attention to what your children are doing online. Are they researching ways of dying? That's huge. If
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at the history, researching ways of dying, are they looking at trying to get firearms? We've had an increase in firearms since the pandemic as well, so we got to look at those things as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
What are they what's irritating them? Some of the other things
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that there's some verbal things that you can hear, verbal things that they talk about,
Mm-hmm.
this fascination about killing themselves, that they have, life has no meaning. There's no
Mm-hmm.
purpose for their lives. They're feeling life feels like a burden. Everything's a burden. They're feeling stuck. These are some key phrases that we can listen for and listen to. Not wanting to exist any longer, wanting to disappear. These are different things that we can
Mm-hmm.
kind of tune our ears to, in what that looks like
Yeah.
as well. And let me give you a couple more statistics here, Portia.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at
Absolutely.
suicide and suicide ideation, some of the serious triggers. Um, 4% of all adults have this whole fascination with suicide and suicide ideation. But when we talk about young adults between the ages of 18 to 25, almost 12% of young adults have some sort of suicide ideation. And if we take it to the high school level, with that 12% now kicks up to 19%. That's scary to me. 19% of high schoolers have some sort of suicide ideation or fixation on it, with that. Now, if we do it, I'm going to throw one more statistic out too. In the
Okay.
LGBTQIA community,
Yes.
47%, 47% have suicide ideation and have a fixation with suicide. And we're looking at those who label themselves as gay or bisexual. They are 4 times more likely to have ideations about suicide. And if we look at our
Wow.
transgender population, they are 12 times more likely as well. So we have some serious conversations that we need to have with our high school students. And I'm going to even trickle it down to middle school, high school, our young adult,
Absolutely.
and our LGBTQIA communities, because those are the ones that are having a fascination with it, an ideation with it, most more than are any other communities.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, you're in California, and one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that I saw very early when I started going to California, with John,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically in the LA area, is the
Yes.
homelessness of the
My God.
LGBTQIA
Yes.
children, kids, teens that have been put out of their homes. And so they're on the streets,
Yes.
they're homeless, they don't have anyone. And so when we look at that population alone,
Yes.
it's sad, but it does not surprise me. I mean, why would you want to
Right.
live when now you're living in this body that you don't understand, that you are scrutinized and criticized? Your parents don't
Right.
want you, so
Right.
something must be wrong. God doesn't love you because you've heard it
Mm-hmm.
so much. And so
Yes.
I think it's very, very important is that when we are talking about helping people, when we are talking about loving people, that is
Mm-hmm.
all people. That is all
Yes.
people. And I think
Yes.
it's so important that we cannot leave them out of the conversation. I know it is controversial. I
Yes.
know it hits a spot in your heart that you don't know what to do with, but they are
Right.
people and God loves them too. And so I think it is so very important that we don't leave these
Yes.
people out of the conversation, and especially transgender. I mean, when we think about
Yes.
the crimes on transgender men and women, it is so high. It is so high, the hate crimes. And so, of course, now they're 12 times as, as
More
much
likely.
having
Yes.
suicide ideation. And it is
Yes.
heartbreaking, Marty. It is heartbreaking. And so when we have these conversations, I think that's important too. I think our schools need counselors and people
Yes.
who can deal specifically with these type of issues and with issues that the LGBTQIA population have, which are different from our
Very much
heterosexual
so.
brothers and sisters, right? It's the same reason why maybe I go and look for a Black female, because there
Mm-hmm.
are different things that I deal with that maybe a white female or white man can't really speak to the depths of my pain as it relates to me. So I think it's so important, and we have a lot of work to do. But I am hopeful.
But
I am
Portia,
hopeful that if you and
so am I. Go ahead.
yeah, that if we keep having these conversations, Marty, if we keep having these really tough conversations as believers, I'm not talking
Yes.
about other people. I'm talking about as believers that we have these conversations, and that we're saying that the only people who are committing suicide are not heterosexual. Like
Right.
they're part of other communities, and I think that's so important. But when I went to LA and going to Skid Row and seeing the homelessness and seeing how children are selling their
Couch
bodies
surfing. Yes.
because they have been put out from their homes. And so, and I wonder what the data looks like, because we can easily say, oh, we don't know this is Jane Doe or
Mm-hmm.
John Doe, right? So
Yes.
how do we collect that data? John said, I'm thinking about my 24-year-old son. I intentionally often check in on him due to his self-imposed pressure to measure up to his father. What are some ways parents can serve our children? That's so good. Marty, I'll let you
Wow.
answer that one.
John Henry, you hit the nail right on the head. Just reaching out. It's such a small, but such a has a major impact on their lives. Just reaching out to them. I'll never forget the time when I had this amazing opportunity to work with AIDS Project Los Angeles and work with this small population called Healthy Him, from 18 to 20 to 29, of Black and Hispanic young men who were gay, and that some of them had HIV, some of them didn't. And the question that kept coming up over and over and over again, it still breaks my heart. Why don't my parents love me? Why don't they
Mm,
care about me? Why don't they ever ask about me? And even when one father put his son out there and then start beating on him and calling him inappropriate names and calling him out his name, and he just like these,
Right.
like any kid, every child, I don't
Right.
care, they want the recognition of their mother and father, and
And their
especially
father.
for the young men, the words
That's
of a
right.
father
That's right.
go so much farther and can make such a impact in their lives. You don't have to like what they necessarily do, but
Right.
love them back to health. Can I say, can we love them to death? So
Can
we
we
change
love
the
them?
love them, yes, and just keep loving on them till we love the craziness out of them. And I'm not saying that whatever lifestyle
I
they
know.
choose,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying, but just love
I
them
know what
back,
you're saying.
because all of our kids lose their mind. Our for especially for young men, our minds don't fully develop until we're about 25. Yes, men, we are late bloomers, whether we want to realize it or not. The young ladies, their minds have developed by about 18, 19, 20, and we still out there waiting for our minds to fully develop by about 25. But even in that, love, love, love. Now abideth faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these
This of
is
them,
love.
is love.
Yes,
Absolutely.
love, love.
Absolutely. And I do want to say this again. You know, if you or someone you know is in trouble, if
Yes.
you're on this and you know someone, the first thing I would say is don't tell them to reach out. You reach out. But you can always go to NAMI, NAMI.org,
Mm-hmm.
NAMI.org, and they have so many resources. You can also connect with them by calling 1 800 273 TALK. 1 800 273 TALK. That's 1 800 273 8255. So, Marty, I want to talk briefly about this because I don't know what we do with people who hide it so well. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I am an amazing, amazing hider. You know, I think you and I talked about it. You
Yes,
and I talked
yes.
about it a little bit, and I said that I'm very trauma responsive, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
when something happens, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
very clear. I'm triage oriented, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we have an issue, we're going to triage this, we're going to figure this out. So I'm very trauma responsive. But I think I was
Mm-hmm.
telling you one of the things that happens is that after it's over, then there is this thing where I now got to take care of myself. Right. And
Yes.
I think for so long, when you have been the trauma responder,
Mm-hmm.
that at some point you are now dealing with some of the mental things that you're like, where did this pop up with? But I
Yes.
can still, but you can essentially still function, right? So you can
Mm-hmm.
work, you can get on TV, you can be this great basketball player or singer or
Mm-hmm.
mom or dad, and no one will really know. And so I think that there are still probably small signs. So,
Yes.
we're thinking about people who are not out there telling that I'm having mental health, but they are definitely hurting on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those small things that we can look for? And even just checking in with one another.
Hmm. I think that's the key. One of the things I love saying is I took this from one of my other therapist friends, colleagues. He does this check-in and says, "You good, fam?" And one of the things we have to stop doing is being accusatory in everything. What's wrong with you? Well, when you do that, that says I can't trust you to tell you what really is going on with me because you've already judged me before I've even said anything. We have to show a lot more grace with one another, especially now. You good? Now black folk, and I'm gonna say black and brown folk, we do everything around food. Listen, I love a good cup of John Henry is making me love a good cup of coffee. I still want some of that
Coffee.
pour over. Yes, yeah, I need a good piece of cake, a good slice of pizza, and I am good. But maybe a little peach cobbler with some fresh vanilla ice cream, but that's a whole nother story. But we have to learn how to meet people right where they're at. Stop being so
Mhm.
judgmental. Let's have some
Mm,
create some safe spaces where I
a
can
safe
say I'm good or I'm not good. And you're not going to judge
Mhm.
me for that. We all can, we have
Yeah.
learned how to put on the proverbial mask all the time. How you blessed and highly favored. Oh, I'm good with the evidence of
Mhm.
speaking in tongue.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we can do all that when inside we are dying and crying out for help. Look for
Mhm.
those signs.
That's right.
Look for, I always say this way, look for small glimpses and changes in the behavior that's kind of
Mhm.
now consistent, because there's always some
Mm.
warning signs that's
Yeah.
consistent. We can have conversations with our children. How was your day today? Good. Okay, well, now what made it good? Share with me.
Mhm.
Family
Yeah.
meetings where we have every Sunday at 6 o'clock. We're going to have a family meeting. We're going to have
I
dinner
love
together.
that.
We're just going to talk. We're going to have some time.
Mhm.
And then have some individual time with each of your children, each of your
Yes.
godchildren, your mate, your spouse. Have some individual time with them. See how they're doing.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Ooh. Have some checkup moments where you can check up on each
Yeah.
other and see how you're doing.
I I love that. One of the things that we try to do and have this open relationship with
Yes.
all of our children. And, sometimes we're
Yes.
like, is it too open? Did we do something wrong? But, I wouldn't take it back with the information that we have, the information I'm seeing this come up, but with the conversations that we have had with our own children, all three of those children. My daughter, she will wake me up in the middle of the night and she will say, Mommy, I need to talk. And she knows I will get up and that it is okay to talk about these things, even when you may not have verbiage, because sometimes they don't have vocabulary, especially going through
Right.
puberty and trying to figure it out. But I think making it a safe place and saying it.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
important because if they don't know, they don't know. Miracle Now, when she was first born, not firstborn, when she was old enough to understand right from wrong.
Right. Right.
And there was a situation and I needed to get the truth out from her. And I had to tell her, well, this is the honest game. And what we do
Mm-hmm.
with the honest game is that you can tell
Love
mommy
it.
anything. It doesn't mean that there's no consequences, but the reaction to it, you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to listen. We're going to talk it out. And we are going to come up with a consequence. Really, it's my
Yes.
consequence. But more so than they're worried about the consequence, they're worried about the reaction. So if
Yes.
they know that in that moment I can go to her and she's not going to blow up, and the same with Maddox and
Yes.
Jontel. And so when they have hard things to talk about, now she doesn't really say honest game, but she'll say it in a way, we need to talk. And I'm like, okay, there's
Yes.
a certain way that she has it that means that, and that we
Yes.
have it. And it doesn't mean that I'm always walking out of the conversation like, woohoo, but what I am is I'm
Right.
grateful that she can have those open conversations. So telling our children that, hey, you're getting to an age, whatever, you're going to have some hard conversations with me. And I want you to talk to me. And this is the parameters around that. This is the safe
Mm-hmm.
space around that when you have something to talk about, call it whatever you need to call it if they're younger, or if they're older, just tell them that this is our safe space, and you can call it the
Yes.
safe space or whatever you
Love
need to
that.
do, right? Or a place in your house where you guys talk. Maybe it's on the couch, when they pull you to the couch, that this is going to be a conversation where they need you, not necessarily to not be a parent, but to be a safe
Mm-hmm.
space. And so
I
I
love
think
that.
that's just what I have tried to do. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it definitely has opened up communication with all of our children.
We have to be willing to
Yeah.
try different things all the time. As our children grow and mature, the way that we reach them changes as well.
Right.
And I just believe, Portia, that suicide is 100% preventable. I just honestly
Mm.
believe in my heart that suicide is 100% preventable, but we have to have the right conversations. We got to be able to really create safe atmospheres for people to say that I'm not okay, and whatever that might be. On my show last week, we talked about one of the parents said her son wrote a Dear COVID letter. And in that Dear COVID
Mm.
letter, he got to say everything that he wanted to say that COVID has caused him. He says, I'm angry
Mm.
with you. I'm mad because you've disrupted my life. I have anxiety. She goes, I didn't even know that he knew what anxiety was. But
Was,
it gave
yeah.
him permission to say everything that he needed to say. So now she's got a closer watch on her son because he was able to
Mm-hmm.
open up through a letter, through an email, and she even has, you ready for this? Family Zoom meetings. She goes, they could be in the
I
right in the
love
other room. She
that.
goes, once a month we do family Zoom because she goes, that's what they're used to now. So I took advantage
Mm-hmm.
of the technology and we do Zoom
Technology.
meetings. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes,
I
they
love
love
that.
it.
I know some therapists are telling people to write almost dear COVID letters, but almost like
Yes.
a bucket list for after COVID. So not
Love
necessarily
that.
the way he did, but something to look forward to. So you kind of have
Yes.
your COVID list instead of your bucket list. COVID's going to be over at some point. We're all going to be able to go travel and things will be, what our normal will be. But you kind of make that. So like, even for, say for instance, your COVID is that, I want to go see my grandmother or something. And you make this list. And as you start checking it off or getting close
Yes.
to, you kind of have that hope, right?
Hope.
Like it's
Yes.
something to bring you hope. And so I just love that this got a dear
Yes.
COVID letter, but more like a bucket list for COVID,
Yes.
so that you have some hope and something to look forward to.
Love it.
I
Love
think
it.
I was
Love it.
telling you, I was talking to, I can't believe we're almost out of time,
Oh my
but just in the
goodness.
school systems, how depression and anxiety is
Yes.
increasing in so many of the school systems. And Marty, you know what? I would love, and maybe you and I can figure this out, but find some resources so that teachers and counselors are more empathetic and
Yes.
graceful around how
Yes.
they are treating kids, because it may not be that they're not doing their work. It may be that they're depressed, that they have anxiety, that they're
Yes.
still concerned.
Yes.
Um, about what's going on. One of the things that
Yes.
we always talk about is people wearing their mask. And I didn't think
Mm-hmm.
about it this way until I heard another therapist say this, is that, what it has to do with control. And people
Mm-hmm.
feel like, for a lot of people, I mean, some reasons are different, but a lot of
Right.
people, even with the vaccine, is that they feel like everything's been taken from them. They have no control over
Yes.
who gets sick, over I've lost
Right.
loved ones, over I've been in quarantine, I'm getting told what to do. I have no control. So the fact that I can say no to a vaccine or I can say no to a mask is me taking back my control and having some hope. Ken, thank you so much for that. But yeah,
And you know,
so I
he would
think,
be a great guest for you. He's an amazing black male kindergarten teacher,
oh,
and
that's
dealing with this as
incredible.
well. Yes, yes, and that discussion
Yes,
in our
Ken,
classrooms needs to
definitely
happen.
come on the show. It does. It
But
needs to happen
awesome,
in our
it does.
in our schools. I think first line of defense, right, to understand this and that they're talking about suicide prevention and awareness. I
Yes,
just hope that that this show gave people a little hope
hope so.
and gave us a couple of tools to look forward to. Marty, what are your last comments to our audience?
Let's keep the conversation going. Last year alone in 2019, 47,500 people committed suicide. When we look at
Mm,
that, we that's something, suicide is so preventable. Let's have the
mhm.
conversations. Let's take away the stigma, especially in our black and brown communities. Whatever pastor needs to talk about it, I will gladly give you information about how to support your congregations and how to have conversations around it. I'm not trying to change people's spirituality. I'm just trying to bring awareness and how we can go about it from a different level. Have conversations with your teenagers, with your young adults, because they're the ones that it affects the most. Suicide, again, is the second leading cause of death between those who are between the ages of 10 and 34. Let's speak up, let's speak out in order that others might
And
be able
let's
to
live.
live. Yes.
Absolutely. Marty, thank you again so much for always being our resident mental health hygienist.
My
I love it.
pleasure.
I've missed you on the show. You all, I want to
Likewise.
make sure, I want to make sure that you all tune in next week. If you guys were here before, we're going to have Pamela Sams on. She came on as a financial advisor and gave great advice.
Oh,
She's coming back on next week. She'll be a guest. And my co-host next week, it won't be Marty. It will be our resident stand-in co-host, John Henry Scott III. And she's really going to give us information around life insurance, around having wills, and just making sure we have all of those things in place. So listen, this is one of the things I want you to do is that if you have questions before the show, which is great because we can already have things in place for her to answer those questions. So if you have questions that you would like to ask, just text the word impact to 404. I'm finding it 737-0867. Impact to 404-737-0867. Actually, you don't even have to text impact. You could literally just text that particular number with your question. So you guys, thank you for sharing your Sunday with me. I am so very honored, and I don't take it for granted that you spend an hour with me every Sunday. Listen, at 8:08, I want you to head over to Vow to Cherish on YouTube because Ayana and Jonathan Kilgore go live right after me. You know, one day we'll be on a network together, and all I have to say is just stay right there because the next show that's coming on is theirs, or the next show that's coming on is Marty's. So you guys make sure that you head over there at 8:08 to YouTube, Vow to Cherish. They will be on. So you guys know we don't end any episode, any show without this declaration. Waking up is automatic. Showing up is intentional. Today, I will show up. See you next week.